When you talk about last year and you look at all of the teams, one rises above all of the others, and maybe they weren't able to take down the biggest tournament of the year, maybe they weren't able to win BlizzCon, but they put on a performance that was more dominant than really anything we've seen in pretty much any format of World of Warcraft, and that team is Method Black, the only team in the EU that has stayed together. And my question for you, Zico, do you think that they have a chance of being that dominant again?
Absolutely. I think there's several things that still speak volumes to how good Method Black is going to be this year. Number one, of course, is their work ethic of last year. They are just a team that practices always, and they're looking for ways to play more and more alts. But the other big thing was that Chaz was a discipline priest pretty much all of Legion, right? But he has mained Resto Druid before that, and he has stayed sharp on that Resto Druid. So I expect to see Chaz on that Resto Druid doing great things, as well as the fact that Swapsy is just a phenomenal elemental shaman, and Ellie Mage Resto Druid happens to be a really good comp right now. So I think that they have all the comps that they need, and it's just a matter of just working together and finding out which comps they should main.
And that was kind of a thing that we did see with Method Black last year too. They would figure out what the comps were, and then they would just do it a little bit better. That was kind of something consistently that we saw. You think a lot about the Pirate Rogue. We like to talk about those comps a lot, even doing it with a Warrior, right? That's where we initially see it with guys like Taku bringing it out, and then all of a sudden they figure out, hey, look, we can use Outlaw like this. We're going to make it work for us, and it looks fantastic. But when we look at Tempo Storm, this roster obviously has changed a little bit, Ven, but we always called them Counterstorm. This is a team that comes out, they usually figure out not necessarily how to play what is the most flavor of the month, but how to beat it.
Well, many years ago, Alec and Nixie, they were mostly just rogue mage players, and they realized that in order to evolve, especially perform on land, they need more compositions than just rogue mage. So they started playing a lot of different alts, lots of different cleave setups. I know Alec playing the Boomkin as well, so lots of different compositions available for them. But lucky for them, rogue mage is really good right now, and rogue mage druid especially is really good, and that is what Askerath really specializes in, and that is what they are going to debut here on.
And lucky for them, they also grabbed Jamie, who is the biggest fan of rogue mage play in the entire world. He gets to sit on the bench right now and watch these rogue mages fight for his honor, but 70% of you think Method Black is going to be able to take it in the chat. Let's find out if that is what is going to go down in our second series of the year. The gates are now open.
This is the first time we're going to see Tempo Storm go head-to-head against Method Black in 2019. Who is going to get the lead here in terms of points? They're both in the lower bracket. They both face potential elimination, and they're going to lose out on the opportunity at huge points if they go down in this series.
Yeah, Method Black, they're actually coming in with a cleave setup, so they're bringing in the Unholy Death Knight and the Demon Hunter with the Restoration Druid. Swapsy going to be target down, taking a little bit of damage early on, but the thing about these two melees is they are very mobile. They're going to be able to stay on Alex, slow down that damage. They're also very durable, so I think it's going to be difficult for Tempo Storm to actually land a kill until a little bit later on.
Swapsy getting targeted down, but just shaking that off with ease. That initial vendetta from Nixie really not pulling too many powerful cooldowns, and if Method Black are looking this solid defensively, it's going to be desperation for Alec. He's trying to kite and stay out of range of these melee classes, but quite difficult with the Demon Hunter chasing you down, one of the highest mobile melee in the game. Great composition choice by Method Black, and Nixie's trying to make a move here for his team, going after Chaz. Alec manages to duck around the corner and dish out some damage, but Chaz just going to shake it off with that bark skin. However, they have gotten through the Gladiator's Medallion and the bark skin of Chaz. If he is not careful for another attack, or maybe they just stay on target, potentially Nixie carrying the team here.
Yeah, Maledict's going to be used over onto Chaz, and now if Alec manages to find a polymorph onto Raikou or Swapsy, he's going to have a difficult time dispelling it. Chaz actually just getting trained down here, gets the Iron Bark on the kidney shot, nicely done. Swapsy playing it safe as well, trading out the AMZ, realizing Chaz is very vulnerable. He has no trinket, no Barskin, no Iron Bark. Really not too much left to save him except for Raikou. He has the trinket and he has the darkness as well. So Raikou's going to have to trade out his darkness for Alex's damage because he does have that combustion up.
This next kidney shot is going to be the end of the game if they're not careful here. Chaz has basically nothing to survive, and Alec held onto the powerful cooldown combustion on a Fire Mage, allowing all of his spells to critically strike and could be a critical blow against his enemy team. Nice Frost Nova. Raikou out of range, cannot use darkness. If they can keep Raikou away from Chaz, they get the Cyclone. Great crowd control executed by Tempo Storm. Raikou manages to get there in the nick of time, securing that darkness and allowing Chaz to stay alive.
Yeah, and now for Chaz, his defensives are going to rotate back up. He has the Bark Skin, he has the Iron Bark Trinkets coming up shortly, so Method Black, they just need to hold on a little bit longer, but really, they are struggling to find damage. Alec just having a field day with the Polymorphs, with the Ring of Frost, and that's what makes Mage Druid so powerful. If you train down the Mage, guess what? You got a Resto Druid to back him up, and you can land those Entangling Roots, you can land the Cyclone, and make it really difficult for these melee to actually land a kill.
I would have liked to seen a swap here by Nixie. He's committed his Vendetta. It seems his strategy is going to just be train Chaz the entire game, do as much damage as possible, but there was an opportunity to switch to Raikou in a Smoke Bomb with Vendetta combined together and try and KO him, but that opportunity is going to be lost now. The damage potential much lower because he committed his Vendetta to Chaz. I think they are still going to make the swap. They drop the Smoke Bomb, but imagine if there was a Vendetta paired up with this, it would be a lot more devastating than only 20% of Raikou's health, and now that Smoke Bomb threat is basically out of the game. Chaz is trying to be greedy because those cooldowns are no longer available. Nixie moves in to follow the crowd control chain, manages to keep it going, but Raikou looks completely stable throughout this moment. We see the Abomination activated by Swapsy. That does a lot of damage if it can connect to the target, but it doesn't seem like it's been able to make its way there just yet. They still got Chaz locked down. They're still going after Raikou to make something happen here, but with Nether Walk available, Raikou can activate that and go immune to all damage. Not even needed. Asgroth's mana not looking good, and Method Black's defense looking unbreakable.
Yeah, Chaz, he just sat a full blind into a Sap, into a Bash, into a Cyclone, and Raikou managed to stay alive during those moments. And now Method Black actually turning around the pressure over onto Alec. Asgroth's mana is not looking good though. Pushing in, landing those Cyclones, that can definitely backfire. It's a way for them to end the game, but it also backfires because it's so taxing on a Restoration Druid's mana.
All right, Asgroth with this Innervate needs to get some value. Innervate makes all of his healing spells free. He wants to spend the most expensive spells as quickly as possible. Looks like he's going to start to stabilize. Got some mana regenerated off the back of it. Reverse Magic on Chaz. This is the best Restoration Druid comp you could play in the game in terms of having support with a Demon Hunter and a Death Knight. Anti-Magic Zone, Darkness, Reverse Magic. You have so many defensive abilities to protect you. This is a great composition by Method Black overall. They've obviously done their homework. They've executed some burst here over towards Nixie as he's forced to trade evasion to stay alive. Looks like he's going to be switching his attention to Swapsy, and Tempo Storm are just trying target after target to try and find some opening, but just not able to find it. They do get pressure generated. Are they going to force a cooldown? Anti-Magic Zone gets traded out. Once again, before the combustion, you usually will see this purple barrier traded for Alec's combustion, that red icon below his health, and Swapsy's been using this cooldown before combustion. Maybe it's to bait him into then committing it, and then Raikou just uses Darkness. It could be the case there since this team just has so many defensive cooldowns.
Well, I think it was the trade-off for the Vendetta, so I wanted to slow down some of Nixie's damage there, and maybe they just don't want to fall behind and be caught in the situation. Like you said, Raikou maybe just saves his Darkness for combustion. Swapsy trades out the Anti-Magic Zone for Vendetta, and that way they have basically all the offensives from Tempo Storm covered, so smart pick by Method Black if they can execute, and so far it seems good. Asgaroth rotting down just a little bit as they turn their attention over on him. Raikou chasing him down. Barkskin does get traded out, and Asgaroth's mana, once again, not looking good in this matchup. Swapsy into the full kidney shot. Nixie and Alec trying to find some damage, but Swapsy just completely fine. Shrugs off all of that Rogue Mage damage and now can continue his assault on Alec.
There is no opening for Tempo Storm right now. They're going to have to stay alive at least another 3 to 4 minutes if they want to even create an opening. And right now, Asgaroth, I don't think he has the mana to do it. Nixie's trying to make something happen here, going after Chaz. They've got Raikou and Polymorph, good cross crowd control, but they don't even tickle Chaz's health in that attack. He's going to completely wipe it away and go back to full health immediately. Asgaroth almost out of mana, and it's going to be a ticking time bomb. He's trying to sit down for a drink. Alec needs to buy him time. They may need to trade Ice Block to get mana back for a longer match. They need a longer match, and Alec's doing whatever he can to make sure he doesn't need to. While Asgaroth sits down for a drink, they deny the Spectral Sight of Raikou. No, Raikou actually manages to make his way over. Nixie secures the crowd control. Swapsy's actually exposed in midfield. This could be a potential Darkness. No, not going to be forced as Chaz gets out of crowd control and starts connecting him heals. Does actually manage to get caught. Maledict's huge damage could be an opening. Great usage there by Tempo Storm, overlapping defensive cooldowns, and Tempo Storm might be creating opportunities here moving forward if they can stay in the fight just a bit longer.
Yeah, and Raikou, he actually traded out his Trinket to stop the drink from Asgaroth, so now he doesn't have the Trinket available. So if Tempo Storm can land crowd control on Raikou, he won't be able to get that Darkness out. In the meantime, Asgaroth in a lot of trouble. Iron Bark on him, as well as Barkskin gets caught into Incapacitate, as both Swapsy and Raikou looking to close out game number 1. AMZ gets used there by Swapsy on the Vendetta cooldown, so just looking to trade that out on cooldown. Doesn't want to fall behind. He's going to be sitting on that as Nixie is the one taking most of the damage.
Mana has evened out at least a little bit closer, but Nixie and Swapsy are falling low, and in dampening, Death Strike is not as potent. Swapsy could be an exposed target here as that dampening ramps up that number at the top of your screen, that minus 14%. That's 14% of all incoming healing spells, which makes it difficult to recover through heavy burst damage, such as this moment right now for Swapsy. Is he going to be able to deal with it? Raikou will save the day with that purple cloud on the ground, darkness, denying a huge amount of damage and keeping Swapsy aggressive as Chaz starts to stabilize the team.
Yeah, Nixie's going to be vulnerable as this game goes on. He gets topped off very quickly by Asgarath. He still has the evasion as well, so Nixie does have some cooldowns to rotate through, but he's going to be a great target for Method Black. Nice grip in by Swapsy. Raikou manages to land the double Chaos Nova. Good pressure onto Asgarath once again. Vortex by Chaz keeps Asgarath in the fight as he's looking to get away, forcing the Bark Skin. Now full polymorph over onto Chaz. Swapsy could be in some trouble, but he still has the AMS, so defensively Swapsy's looking completely fine in this situation, but he doesn't want to overextend too far.
Yeah, at this point, though, Asgarath has bought his team time and mana deeper into dampening, and with one heavy burst window, potentially could take Swapsy down. Swapsy death grips Asgarath in, and Method Black, they're getting aggressive here in deep dampening, just running down the healer, constantly switching to him, trying to run him for a loop. They've still got pressure on Alec as well, but Swapsy preemptively anti-magic shields. This green shield around his character absorbs all magic damage and was timed perfectly right before a stun, which doesn't allow him to activate it, but even still, just getting crushed under the weight of Tempo Storm. Chaz is forced to trade, and even with that trade, dampening's too high. It's a race to the finish here. Will Swapsy be able to stay in it? He's retreating. Nixie is hunting him down, but with Chains of Ice, Swapsy looks like he is going to start to recover. Alec can't get in line of sight to get a polymorph at the back of that cheap shots, and the crowd control will be diminishing here shortly. Alec blinks in, triple Dragon's Breath. Good setup, goes for the polymorph. Fake cast, doesn't manage to land it. Mind Freeze interrupts it by Swapsy. Mana starting to even out, and at this point, it's actually anyone's match. Asgarath has done it. He's bought his team enough time.
Yeah, Chaz gets interrupted. Swapsy still falling a little bit behind. And if Alec is using that Kleptomania talent, he's going to be able to remove all of those heal over time effects if they can land any crowd control over onto Chaz. And at 26% dampening, that becomes devastating. Swapsy still has the AMZ available as well as the EMS. There's a kidney shot onto Chaz as they're making a swap to him. Vendetta gets used. Swapsy trades out his AMZ, and that gets huge value because that was the Meteor coming in from Alec as well, so preventing a lot of potential damage that Tempo Storm has available. Chaz just going to be line of sighting, keeping himself alive. Alec spamming out the fireballs, looking for some pressure. But with Chaz out of line of sight, it's difficult having to play a peel game, just throwing out the polymorphs onto Raikou, forcing Chaz to get out of bear form, and that allows Nixie to get more pressure on him as well.
Alec has to ping pong between both defense and offense. Whenever Raikou guns down for Asgarath, Alec needs to back him up, but Chaz has been isolated. There is no defense left for him. Will he be able to survive? Raikou peels Nixie away. Chaz ducks around the corner, catches a big heal, starts to stabilize. Nixie's just going all in. This is a bit aggressive. Raikou's trying to punish him on the push, but he knows he needs to take advantage of this opportunity while Chaz has no defense. If he can stay alive another 13 seconds, I feel like there's almost no way for Tempo Storm to win. They've got 8 more seconds to kill Chaz, but they can't even dent him. Chaz is buying enough time. All of those defensive cooldowns, but all Darkness, Barskin, Ironbark, the Glidier's Medallion, basically everything from Method Black have rotated back and are available, and Asgarath is completely tapped on mana unless he can escape for a drink once again. Method Black should be securing victory, I believe, here very shortly. Chaz trying to read the situation. Pre-Ironbarks, Tempo Storm bait it. Actually, no, it trades with the Combustion. They're going to have to try and crush through the defense of Chaz, but I'm not sure if they've got the damage to do it, Ben.
Yeah, kidney shot on Chaz. He manages to find bear form. Alec looking for some pressure as well. Nixie all over him, but Chaz, his HP just isn't moving. He has the Bark Skin still, has the Trinket, didn't trade it out. Darkness not going to be available. Actually, I think Raikou just traded out the Darkness, and that's why his HP was not moving. Asgarath looking for Cyclones, but now completely out of mana because of that. Chaz just getting ran down, though. Garrote Silence from Nixie. Chaz has to be able to survive a little bit longer. Manages to survive with the Frenzied Regen and the Bark Skin now out of line of sight. It is time for Swapsy and Raikou to really tear in, especially with Asgarath having no mana left, Sid.
This might just turn into a healer race. Will Asgarath be able to handle the pain deep in dampening, or will Chaz fall first is the question. Asgarath's got nothing left. Chaz has at least just a little bit left in the tank with Innervate to give him free mana. Asgarath is trying to go for a drink with a defensive blind as they swap to Swapsy and try and kill him with pressure. Raikou denies the drink. Alec moves in for the game-winning polymorph, but gets shut down by both Swapsy and Raikou. Great coordination to interrupt every polymorph by Alec, just making his life a living nightmare. He moves in. He's actually playing Pandaren, goes for the Pandaren racial, but gets denied on the Ring of Frost follow-up, and now he's overextended, but he activated Temporal Shield right before making all of those maneuvers and should be bouncing not very high on health with 42% dampening. Alec in a tough position, but Asgroth gets crowd control. It's a race to the finish, and neither team has anything really to work with.
Yeah, Chaz had to trinket out of a nice Cyclone coming in from Asgroth. Asgroth completely tapped on mana and nothing left. If Alec and Nixie both get low, I don't think Asgroth can really recover that. Alec forced into the ice block because Asgroth, I think he's sitting down for a drink right now. Doesn't manage to find much mana. Chaz getting interrupted. Swapsy low as well. No defensive cooldowns whatsoever besides Chaz's Iron Bark, and he manages to find the Iron Bark right before the Smoke Bomb. So nicely done by Chaz and Method Black surviving, and now Temple Storm there in a world of trouble.
You can tell that both teams are of the highest caliber here as they go head-to-head for the first time in 2019. We move into the deepest stage of dampening as we've seen in the day. Both healers are completely tapped. They're on the ropes to try and close this match out. Raikou trinkets aggressively. This could be an opportunity to punish, but Asgaroth denies it. Swapsy once again just taking the brunt force of Tempo Storm. Chaz with a well-timed innervate is clutching out some expensive heals to try and stabilize, but even still, at what is almost 50% healing reduction, it may not be enough. Nixie is forced to retreat away. The Abomination by Swapsy has forced him to run. Nixie knows the power of that cooldown and is completely respecting it at this stage of dampening, but they set it up. Great crowd control. Raikou breaks it up, though, with the reverse magic, and now Alec on the back foot with nothing much but Iron Bark and no mana left is likely to fall as Raikou desperately closes out. Cauterize triggers, Alex on the run, and he's not going to be able to stay alive. Method Black with clinical precision on defense take game one.
And also here, when we look at this, this is what two skill cap druids are going to be able to do. This is something that we alluded to. This is so strong right now in the current state of the game. We expect to have quite a few looks at series like this, but let's take a deeper look at the two different archetypes that we see as well. Rogue Mage, it's something that we constantly are going to see in this tournament, but also we look and we see a Cleave. Now, when we talk about Cleaves, there was a team that was known for being one of the best Cleave teams in the world, and that's going to be in Method Orange. Of course, that's on the NA side of things that we're going to be taking a look at tomorrow, but they weren't even able to crack that top 8. They weren't even able to make it this far in the tournament. So why are we seeing a team like Method Black now able to use something like the Melee Cleave?
Well, it all comes down to the healer, right? Method Orange now, for example, I mean, Sidu does play that Resto Druid, but Chaz has mained it for many, many years. You have a melee cleave centered around that Resto Druid. It's gonna perform much better than a melee cleave, which is centered around that Shaman. I mean, just imagine if Sidu was as good on his Resto Druid as he is on Shaman, probably would have made that top 8. Actually, this game was very, very close because Chaz, he doesn't have Trinket right here at the end when Alec goes down, and Nixie is about to have his blind ready because Chaz had to Trinket out of a Cyclone earlier in the game. So if Alex somehow manages to survive this part of the game with that Iron Bark, there is actually a kill window here onto Swapsy for Temple Storm. But unfortunately for them, they can't crack the armor. Just perfect rotation of defensives from Method Black is going to secure them that win, and the Demon Hunter Death Knight is a really good way to kind of counter that Rogue Mage, because like you guys already mentioned during the cast, you can use that anti-magic zone to counter the Vendetta, and then you have that darkness to fall back on if Alec gets up to any tricky things with that combustion.
Yeah, and also, Supatis, we kind of just have to mention, what can't you do when you have Swapsy? Ultimately, Swapsy just opens up so many different options. You know, when we do look at what we saw in the first series, yes, we do see Hydra come in the final game, but besides that, no real changes happen. When you have Swapsy, he can do whatever the heck he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we interviewed him last year, his main goal, he's obviously multi-BlizzCon champion. His main goal is getting his team to BlizzCon championship because Waz, Chaz, and Raikou have not gotten that title, and it's Swapsy's mission to basically get that. And he's basically picked up World of Warcraft as a car, opened up the hood. He knows everything inside, no matter what. Best mechanic for World of Warcraft, just fixes anything, and he's really trying to make sure he can get his team this win this year.
What's up with this automotive?
I don't know. You started it.
I started it. I didn't keep it going. We were talking amongst ourselves. We're thinking about buying a van together. We're talking about, you know, going full on. But hey, let's talk about Waz. And Waz was one of these players that we talked about as kind of being the core, right? We expected Waz to come in all the time. Obviously, Chaz, right? He is going to be the healer of this team. But we talk about the synergy that Waz has between Swapsy, that he has between Raikou, right? He has it. with both of these players. But the main difficulty that I feel like this roster did have was creating Swapsy and Raikou synergy, because then when you have that, you open up so many more compositions. Do we expect to see Method Black focus on that more in the early parts of this season?
Well, that's something interesting about Method Black, because we kind of I talked to them about that. You know, the synergy between Raikou and Swapsy, when they play together, they normally don't do that well. But talking to them, they feel like they have just as much synergy. Maybe just the matchups that they played in didn't necessarily go their way. So it just didn't look like that to us. But these guys have been playing and practiced a lot together. And I think bringing in this cleave setup, especially when you have Rogue Mage Druid available, you could go into the mirror matchup, but then at worst you're at a 50-50 if you think you're better. Obviously, greater odds than that. But I think bringing in this cleave comp, something that they obviously considers a counter to Rogue Mage Druid, I think is very intelligent.
Now, when we do talk about Tempo Storm, what do we expect their take to really be on the meta right now? Do we expect them to play as much Rogue Mage as possible?
Yeah, I think we're going to see Tempo Storm pretty much play the same things over and over. We're going to see a lot of Rogue Mage, and if they are going to bring in Jamie, it would be that Elemental Shaman Frost Mage Resto Druid, which is also a very powerful composition in the current meta, which would be a good answer actually for what Method Black ran just now.
Yeah, I mean, if that car's not broke, you don't need to fix it, right, Sid?
Well, certainly not. I don't think Swapsy's car is ever going to break down. He's just playing World of Warcraft for, what, a decade now?
Yeah,
his car never breaks down. Like, he just keeps going.
When you talk about what Swapsy can do, I mean, you just can't say it enough. He just has the potential to completely change the tide of a series. I didn't even know that we might see this come out from him. It's not something. With so many of his classes that you do think, okay, Swapsy, they're strong right now.
Well, I think talking about this particular meta, a lot of people talk about Rogue Mage, they talk about Destruction Warlocks and the power of Resto Druids and Windwalker Monks, but I really feel like these sort of off-cleave setups, the Death Knight with the Windwalker, that composition is very good. Bring in the Demon Hunter, the Warrior Death Knight. I think these are very solid as well. And I think the reason why Method Black decided to go for this is because, like we kind of talked about, if they bring in the cleave setup, they will get countered, but now bring in the Rogue Mage Druid, they're at worst at 50-50 for Tempo Storm, because now they cannot run the Ellie Mage.
I hope that that's right.
I
hope that we get to see Swapsy play Rogue instead of Was. That would be, if after we're hyping up Swapsy and so we're blue in the face, if all of a sudden he just comes out and he's like, hey, I'm playing Rogue too. Like, what's up, guys? So either way, we're assuming that is going to be Was. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure production did just confirm that. We are going to have a mirror on our hands. And when we look at these two teams, that is something that we very much can get excited about.
Well, it's just what Ben already mentioned. If they pick the cleave setup blind, then they might get countered by the double wizards. But now they can play Rogue Mage. They will have a good matchup against the Elemage Druid. And at worst, they will have a mirror matchup, which is still a 50-50. And Method Black, they are not ones to shy away from those mirror matches. We saw them go head-to-head in the RMP mirrors back in Legion against Tempo Storm, and it was not pretty for Tempo Storm. So this is a very, very smart pick from Method Black.
It's almost like there weren't months in between BlizzCon and now for Method Black. They just know, okay, we've got our entire strategy for this series planned out, and we're going to go right through it, play perfectly throughout. Like, there's basically been no break for them, almost, it seems, in terms of their play.
Well, you look at the roster and you don't really expect it. Anything besides a BlizzCon win going to be disappointing to them. That is their goal. And they have the advantage right now in so many ways. When you look at how the EU has shaped up, they're the only roster that really is returning. When you do look at Tempo Storm, they're another one that does have a lot of synergy, but Method Black completely together throughout the entirety into 2019. The question is, we're in the lower portion of the bracket. Method Black and Tempo Storm already in an elimination series. What the heck has been going on in this bracket? It's crazy.
Well, there's a lot of new teams, and I think there was a lot of sort of misfits last year that didn't manage to find a roster really early on. And with the way the point system works is the teams are sort of encouraged to stay together throughout the entire year, because you do take a hit on points if you're changing up your roster too often. So some of those players got left behind, and I think now with this new season, those players that were a little bit left behind, they have made these new rosters that have made sense, and that means it's going to be a lot more competitive and a lot more difficult for some of the teams we saw last year.
It really is bananas. I mean, you tear through this, and I feel like to some people who are watching right now, like every roster is going to be a little bit of a surprise, but you just flip through the pages, and not only are you seeing that mix-up that we expected to see, I feel like over the past 3 years maybe, it was all of the same players moving rosters. They try to make it work. They have the comps, they don't. They fall to the top, they rise to the top, they fall to the bottom. This time around, it's almost like, hey, remember that really good player? He just started a team with a few people that you don't even know yet and then got eliminated, or vice versa. Like there are a lot of teams that we talk about where, stars last year, they're not going to be here. You're not going to get to watch them on the broadcast. I feel like this year is going to be really crazy, Zico.
Yeah, I mean, if you just take one of these players from either of those teams, like we mentioned earlier, the only team from Europe out of 5 teams that qualified for BlizzCon that stayed the same is Method Black. Everyone else had changes in some way, shape, or form. And the team that actually knocked Method Black down to this lower portion of the bracket is going to be the Chalky Milkman. And the most known player on that roster would be Gelu. We saw him over at Reformed last year as their 4th. They were Reformed, of course, were the jungle that won the spring finals. Then they had a mage as their 4th who really didn't have too much success in that team. Instead, he has gone and found himself a new roster. They've been playing a lot of Rogue Mage Druid, a lot of Rogue Mage Priest, and they found win conditions against Method Black. They're in the upper portion of the bracket, and all it takes is really just one of these players from those 5 teams to make a new team, and then all of a sudden that's a new threat coming out of Europe.
And there were a lot of players like Gelu that we'll get to talk about more throughout the day that last year were on strong teams but didn't find their opening, didn't find a team that really supported the classes that they had. That changes here in this season, but the question is Method Black's early dominance going to change? Are they going to get off to a strong start against Tempo Storm?
Yeah, you can see just by the talent choices, Raikou is opting not to use the Temporal Shield, so likely has a Kleptomania. Alec could have it as well, but giving up a little bit of offense. Greater Pyro going to be used for both of these mages as they find midfield looking for that cast, and that's going to be something very important during this matchup. That either mage can get a Greater Power Blast off. That's going to do 33% of someone's health. It is massive damage and can easily turn the tide of a fight.
Ooh, one Greater Pyro going to be making its way on over. Cyclone, though, at low health will deny any sort of follow-up, but it does break up some of the defense of Asgroth as Chaz is trying to make some moves. Alec getting swapped too. Method Black asserting damage dominance early on, but Alec is looking like he's going to get his opportunity to blast back. No, gets shut down by Waz, connecting in a smoke bomb as well to try and create even more pressure. Meteor crashes in. Maledicts, huge damage. It's going to soak up a lot of incoming healing. They go all in with those Maledicts and get everything from Alec. That's a massive swing for Method Black's lead.
Yeah, and here's one of the things about the Maledict Trinket, especially against Fire Mage. Fire Mage has sort of a cheat death with their Cauterize, and if you can use your Maledict Trinket right before that cheat death procs, he's not going to get that heal. Fire Mages can not expect that, and you can take them down very easily. Luckily, Alec, he read the situation. He was low, managed to survive with that Ice Block, and now Temple Storm looking for some damage on Chaz.
Yeah, Alec in desperation to make something happen and kill Chaz, the healer of Method Black. They managed to overcommit defensive cooldowns onto Chaz, but Restoration Druid is a lot more difficult to go after than the Mage as the target, and it's very unlikely that Chaz gets switched to moving forward. Waz on the other side has Vendetta. That's a massive, powerful cooldown. If Waz can connect, it's going to be devastating. Nixie trying to make a move here on Raikou, bursting him down. Chaz moves forward, does start to stabilize. Chaz getting cycloned. Potential opportunity here for Tempo Storm, but Waz once again just shutting Alec out of the fight, not allowing him to get that powerful Greater Pyro Blast off as both mages go fishing for Pyros. Alec shuts them both down with that Dragon's Breath. Good position, and Raikou looking to line up, gets kidneyed right at the last second, and every single rogue in this game is going to be saving that kidney shot right till the end of a cast to deny it. But now with the Cyclone, might not be able to. Greater Pyroblasts are starting to get casted by both mages in center field. Raikou taking the first one here, blinking in aggressively with a follow-up onto Alec, and both mages hang on. Chaz's mana even with Asgroth as we move forward, but obviously with that Ice Block from Alec not available for 3 minutes, that is an opening as Method Black look to try and force and find it. Asgroth trades his Gladiator's Medallion to get out of blind. Waz immediately retreats away, having gotten that trade that he wanted. Now the next crowd control in Asgroth could be curtains for Tempo Storm in game 2.
Yeah, definitely could be very scary for them. Alec looking for some damage once again. Raikou finds the Greater Power Blast, looking for number 2. Alec in a lot of trouble as he gets low. Asgaroth is able to keep him alive as Waz not able to connect to Alec there. Nice polymorph coming in. Raikou putting in a lot of damage, but unfortunately Method Black just wasn't able to connect. And Alec will stabilize, especially with that Iron Bark coming in from Asgaroth. So they did manage to find that big defensive coming in from Asgaroth, and now can sort of push through that Restoration Druid healing a little bit later on. Chaz sitting a full blind into a sap. Raikou managing to survive, doing a good job with his blinks, creating space. Waz coming in with the cheap shot spam as well. Nixie into the polymorph, and Chaz now was able to hold his trinket throughout that entire blind sap, and they couldn't find any damage on the Raikou. I
think Chaz should look to use that Gladiator's Medallion to get aggressive and land some Cyclones and just close the game out. Those Maledicts have to be available here for both teams, and one swift move with that trinket activated on all three members could just be the end of Alec if they can coordinate together. Chaz is crossing the map, gets Frost Nova. Alec trying to buy time, but he's locked down. And immediately uses a preemptive Iron Bark. Chaz moves in, gets the Cyclone, but with Iron Bark's defense, it's unlikely that we see Alec go down. He's also kiting quite effectively with polymorphs on Waz. Really good defense by Alec here in this Rogue Mage mirror, but ultimately his defense is very limited. He needs a couple more seconds. Temporal Shield will bounce him back to full health. Great defensive timing by Alec, and now he's setting up for the team to take down Raikou.
Yeah, Raikou caught into the Ring of Frost, full Ring of Frost onto Chaz as he gets lower. This could be his Ice Block. Alec actually has his second Ice Block rotating back up. Even though they got it so early on, it might be a disadvantage for Method Black later on in the game, especially if they can get this Ice Block right here, right now. Alec will have that second Ice Block trading back up. Raikou won't have it for some time. There's a full interrupt over onto Chaz. He manages to land the Iron Bark onto Raikou, negating some of that damage before the interrupt. Raikou still looking to stabilize his HP, looking for the greater Power Blast as well. Looking for it onto Alec, manages to find one. Waz connecting as well. Full Cyclone now on Chaz. Both mages seem to be fine in this position.
And Alec has managed to weather the storm. His Ice Block's going to be available in 9 more seconds. However, Asgaroth has spent a lot of mana basically over-healing the incoming damage to try and make sure that Alec doesn't go down. But now with both Ice Blocks available, Alec can be more comfortable playing aggressive and setting up for his team. Chaz needs to be ready for that incoming crowd control. He was dodging a lot of polymorphs in the mid-game. If he gets caught even once, though, that could be Ice Block for Raikou. Chaz and Asgaroth both need to dodge polymorph quite effectively. Their positioning is great, 40 yards away from the fight, but a smoke bomb gets dropped to try and punish that max range positioning, and now they're forced to come close. Raikou blinks out of the bomb and survives, now looking for a greater Pyroblast of his own, and it looks like it's going to connect. Alec could take a huge hit here as Asgaroth times some heals and immediately picks him back up.
Yeah, Raikou actually completely wasted his Combust there. Didn't have any crowd control onto Asgaroth, pulled the trigger on Combust, didn't find any damage whatsoever. And I think if they want to find the burst damage they need to close out the game, they just have to be a little bit more patient with their offense. Raikou actually running Firestarter in this matchup as well, so if he can get the Fireballs off, it's going to lower the cooldown of Combustion, but it's odd to play that with greater Power Blast because you're not really spamming out the Fireballs, so you don't get much value from that talent.
We can see some crowd control here set by Method Black. The Maledicts are flying in towards Alec, absorbing all of that incoming heal over time effect, but Alec, great positioning, blinks around the map right back to Asgaroth as the chain begins to finish. It's almost as if these players didn't leave the BlizzCon stage last year, just playing out of their minds here in Game 2, but Alec is still dips low. Raikou, Maledicts come in, Ice Block on basically 0.1% health. Raikou stays in the fight, but Chaz is still crowd controlled. If they can keep the chain going, Asgaroth lands it. Great timing, and Tempo Storm may look to take the mirror here. Cauterize triggers, Raikou retreats away. Chaz, Maledicts fly in to absorb that healing, dispels it instantly, and it looks to be enough for Raikou to survive. Another Maledict from Alec. Raikou hangs on, no kidney shot, the pressure is still gone.
Yeah, Raikou taking some damage, but Chaz in a good position, just spamming out the regrowths to keep Raikou alive. And now Temple Storm in a commanding position where Alec, he has the Ice Block. Asgaroth has his Iron Bark as well. The only thing Method Black really has going for him is Chaz is way ahead on mana in this matchup. Asgaroth does manage to throw out the Iron Bark right now onto Alec. He gets cycloned up, nicely done by Chaz, not allowing Alec to really get out the free damage he would have with that Iron Bark. He couldn't really get taken down in that situation. We're at 13% dampening right now. Raikou, he has the Combustion up. They need to force out that Ice Block from Alec if they want to be on an even footing, but they just can't find the damage.
All right, Chaz looks like he may be trying to cross the map, but Nixie intercepts. Asgaroth looks to follow up. not able to get it, gets denied with a blind. Alec will now be on the back foot, should Asgard. Oh, they swap to Nixie. Nixie preemptively read it, but he gets caught still by Waz. He has no Gliders Medallion. He's dipping dangerously low. Will he be able to stay alive here at 16% dampening? Asgroth no longer crowd controlled. A Tempo Storm hit a switch and reversed the pressure going after Raikou. He doesn't have much. If Asgroth can get crowd control, Raikou will fall. Chaz trinkets, he trades. Raikou stays alive for a bit longer, but now he will be exposed to blind, the strongest crowd control in this mirror matchup, and he will have no way to escape it. Nixie needs to buy time for that moment, and if he can make it, I'm not sure if Method Black are going to be able to do this, and Tempo Storm will tie the series. How is Chaz going to pull this off? It's basically an impossible feat to achieve.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult, but Nixie did trinket there, so that is an opportunity
there it is.
for Method Black later. Raikou getting low. There's the kidney shot. Chaz caught into the full blind. If they have any follow-up, I don't know how Raikou can survive this. Nice interrupt coming in from Raikou, denying the incoming polymorph from Alec, and now Chaz out of crowd control will most likely be able to top off Raikou, but now caught into the cheap shot. Potential Ring of Frost. Unfortunately, Alec wasn't able to find it. Raikou still low. Nice offensive Cyclone denying the heals from Asgaroth. Chaz still, he has to avoid crowd control. Waz is with him to protect. Raikou into Cyclone once again, but this Fire Mage, he has no defensives left. Kidney shot and Smoke Bomb should secure the deal, but the Iron Bar coming in from Chaz might be enough to keep Raikou alive in this situation. Ultimately, Tempo Storm, they will close out game number 2 in the mirror match.
All right, I feel like Method Black is definitely going to disagree with the next thing that I say. But when you look at Tempo Storm and you look at the players that are on their squad right now, you go all the way back. I remember we were in Ukraine. This is like way back. It was before Zico was even commentating with us. And you talk about a lot of the players who are on this team right now who make up Tempo Storm. You say they traditionally, in Rogue Mage mirrors, are the better mirror team. They've just consistently been that squad that you say, they are so fantastic in the mirror. When you look at them now, do you feel like that's the case? Do you feel like they are strong in that mirror?
I mean, they are definitely a super strong team in the mirror regardless. I think both of these teams are some of the best that you really can have in that situation. But with that said, I think that a lot of these smaller errors on the side of Method Black actually ended up costing them, like that one time where Raikou had a nice double Ring of Frost and then Alec ran that little lap. If the follow-up was better, because I could tell Chaz and Raikou miscommunicated there. Raikou wanted to poly the Rogue, Chaz thought he was going to poly the Druid. Small things like that leave a gap in the CC, and all of a sudden the CC gets reversed on top of them. And I think it was small miscommunications like that that really set Method Black on the back foot, because they had a really nice start. It's hard to say after just one game, but they are very evenly matched. I would say Method Black did look really, really good in the start of this game, but then Tempo Storm were kind of figuring out what to do as they went. I just wanted to see a swap to one of those Druids, though. As soon as they trinket a blind, these Druids are playing Moonkin form, which means that they don't have those heals, the Frenzied Regen in bear form. I would like to see a swap perhaps to Asgaroth after he trinkets a blind, or to Chast.
All right, well, ultimately now these teams have a little bit of time before they figure out what they are going to bring in this next game in the series, and they're going to have to take a look in the mirror and decide if they like what they see. A lot of things have changed in this second season of BFA, but one thing really hasn't. When you look at Method Black and you look at Tempo Storm, you want to see the mirror. We got to see one. The question is, are we going to get to see any more of these games go to a mirror? My name is Rich. I'm going to be your host, and I am joined by the master brain on the end of the desk in Zico, and then we got Subatis and Bevruki. So, Zico, when we are looking at this next matchup, do you expect to see the mirror yet again?
I expect the RMD to come out from Tempo Storm, and there we go. Game number 1 all over again.
100% right, every single time.
That's what I do. So Method Black, they feel that the Demon Hunter Death Knight should beat the RMD more often than not. Now, Tempo Storm, they're going to have to beat Method Black with a counter, or playing against the counter, and then they're, in addition to that, going to have to beat Method Black in a mirror after that at least. So it's a tall order for them, for sure.
Yeah, Subatis, this is one of those games where you do start to talk about something that we haven't even mentioned today, which is going to be that first win advantage and how that can really come into play.
Oh, in this matchup in particular, for sure, because both teams have answers to their respective counters. If Tempo Storm had gotten the first win, they could pull out Jamie onto the Elemental Mage to go head-to-head with this Demon Hunter Death Knight instead. But now, because they lost game 1, they have to go uphill against it. And on worse maps, small maps like this, I don't know, maybe we see some deep dampening, but on a small map, if they're able to get to Asgaroth at all, likely Method Black can close this quite quickly. At the same time, so could Tempo Storm. This map could backfire for Method Black, but I think it is uphill for the Rogue Mage. I'm not sure if it's a complete counter. I think there are some opportunities, but it's not easy.
You've piqued my interest, though, when you do talk about Dollar and Sewer. So one of the questions when we get in this back and forth where you expect countercomping to really be the thing that can dictate how the entire series go, you need to look at the maps and say, okay, which map is that potential opening to break up the rhythm and get that reset so you then have the advantage? And is Dollar and Sewers, does it have the potential then to do that?
Well, the thing is, Method Black, they chose this map because they don't want Asgaroth to be able to get away and get drinks, I believe. What they just have to do is make sure they keep up the consistent pressure, make sure they're rotating their defensive, and as long as Asgaroth isn't able to get away and escape and drink, then they have the mana advantage too, I would assume, going into the late game. So Method Black, I think they've picked the perfect map to set up for this exact matchup.
Now, we've already pretty much said it in what we have been talking about, but for anybody just tuning in right now, Zico, who do you expect to win the series now that we have quite a bit of information, right? We have 2 games, we have the comps headed into the third, and we also have the map.
Well, I think Method Black for sure is favored right now to win the series, but it is hard to say. After this game, we will kind of have a better idea of who's going to win, because this is the swing match. If Tempo Storm wins here, they're not going to be having to fight into those counter comps as much. Right now, I would say Method Black has the edge, but I don't think Dollar and Sewers is the best possible map that they can pick. It's a little bit high risk, high reward. They already have the counter. They don't need the best possible map as well, because Tempo Storm in game number 1, they were going after Chaz pretty much the entirety of the game before dampening, and there was a few shaky moments there. If Chaz makes a mistake, he's not going to be able to get away from Nixie either, so it could backfire picking Dollar and Sewers.
It's definitely risky to take it to the tight quarters of Dollar and Sewers. Let's see if it's going to work out for him or if it is going to be their own demise.
Now, I really wonder for Tempo Storm who is their best target in this matchup. I think it's going to be Chaz, but it can just be so difficult for Alec to connect the damage he needs to really assist Nixie, especially being caught into the chains of ice of Swapsy. It's just really difficult to run around this pillar. So Tempo Storm, they definitely have their work cut out for them. Both Raikou and Swapsy going to be very tanky. We saw in the late game they kind of won after Swapsy. It looks like that's who they want to start on as well.
Good crowd control by the team of Tempo Storm early on, and Swapsy appears to be the initial target, but immediately trades anti-magic shield, that green shield, soaking up all the magic damage and making him quite tanky as he survives the initial assault and gets aggressive. And yes, this map selection was a healer rushdown strategy, but Asgaroth with a well-placed wild charge to safety. Alec in great position to allow Asgaroth to escape, but they left Nixie behind and Method Black make a swap, crushing him under the weight of so much damage, forcing multiple defensive cooldowns and creating an opening that they could exploit moving forward.
Yeah, the Maledict forced Nixie to actually trinket and use that Cloak of Shadows, and that is the power of stacking them. You use one, Asgaroth dispels it, you use another, and now they have that necrotic that really Asgaroth wasn't able to heal through, forcing out those defensives from Nixie. So well done by Method Black. That's going to be the opportunities they look for throughout the game. Alec actually switching up his talents in this matchup to play Greater Pyroblast. So now, sitting back far away, he can spam out those Greater Pyroblasts and try to find some openings in the Method Black defense.
Yeah, that could be an opportunity for them to build pressure on Swapsy for sure, but on this close quarters map, someone can always rush over and deny Alec, and Raikou is doing that duty right now, denying Alec of any sort of pressure generation, and they are going to run down Alec and try and nullify that Greater Pyroblast threat. Gripping in Asgaroth, but with no stun. Alec deflects with that Dragon's Breath instantly on the Death Grip, and Asgaroth escapes to safety absolutely unscathed. Nixie actually going to be doing a healer rush, and he's trying to make the map backfire in favor for his team by rushing the healer down. This is a great map to run at the healer, just close quarters, easy to stay on target. But you have to be careful that you don't overextend, which is what Swapsy is forced to do here. He really wants to go after Asgaroth, but if he goes past that waterfall, it's going to be a little bit too deep, and he could ultimately go down or at least force major defensive cooldowns. So he's doing it quite patiently and methodically, death gripping in Alec and slowly advancing his way across the map.
Yep, now Swapsy and Raikou, they're looking to get aggressive with that Abomination. Alec in full defense right now, spamming out the polymorphs as much as he can, and it's difficult for Chaz. He can't get the dispels really. Nicely timed bash over on Nixie allows him to get aggressive. Chaz pushes in, but now Garrote's silence onto him, but Temple Storm, they just can't find the damage. This is the combustion. A little bit of pressure onto Chaz. He responds with the bark skin. The AMZ gets used as well. Now kidney shot on Chaz. He's getting lower. He doesn't have a trinket. Heal Absorb comes in from that Maledict. Chaz has to play catch up. He will survive ultimately in the setup with the Iron Bark, but that was a lot of defensives traded out by Method Black.
They're going all in, and they're still in pursuit. Will Chaz recover, or will Darkness be forced as well? If it is, that's a huge opening. They've managed to buy just enough time, and Chaz looks like he's going to recover just before he can go back to full health. Asgaroth lands a Cyclone. Unlikely that Tempo Storm can build any momentum off the back of that. They've already committed a huge amount of their burst, and they're basically out of gas in the tank. They're going to need to spend some time and recharge and refill before they're going to find another opportunity. Greater Pyroblast could be a surprise attack, connecting onto Chaz, chunking him quite a bit, but Swapsy's there to back him up, and this is just such a great map for a Demon Hunter. You want all three enemy targets standing on top of each other for massive damage, massive stun potential, so the positioning here with Swapsy and Chaz at the pillar will allow Raikou access to that if Tempo Storm overextend, and it looks like they're going to have to. Alec double blinks in, goes all in for a Greater Pyroblast for a switch on Swapsy, trying to mix it up a bit here and catch Method Black off guard, but Swapsy, you cannot catch him off guard, trades and survives, and should be recovering here shortly as Chaz leaves crowd control. Potentially more cooldowns for us, anti-magic shield as well. Tempo Storm still mixing it up and keeping themselves in the fight.
Yep, Swapsy does survive though. Abomination gets traded out once again. Now Alec and Nixie getting a little bit low. Asgaroth has to play catch up. And you look at mana, once again, Temple Storm behind. Chaz about 25% mana higher. Asgaroth looking for a drink, I believe, but it is so easy for Raikou to just push in and deny that drink anytime he wants, and that's really the power of this map. But Asgaroth, he's been in cap form for quite some time. I think he actually went to full mana, so Tempo Storm really swinging the tide in their favor.
Yeah, good awareness by Asgaroth, realizing that this matchup is quite difficult to penetrate through the defense of either side and likely to go into the deep dampening stages, which means as the healer, you need to find opportunities to sneak away and drink, and that will allow you to regenerate your mana back to maximum and keep your fighting potential at max. As Asgaroth moves in, he gets clotheslined by Chaz. Alec tries to deny something here with defensive polymorphs. No, imprison on Asgaroth, decides to trinket and use Iron Bark. That trinket from Asgaroth could be a potential punish for Method Black if they can get on target, but Asgaroth is just going all out aggression here on top of Chaz, but they both get shut down on the crowd control by Method Black, and that allows Alec to even fall behind further. It looks like Nixie's just trying to make something out of this mismatched situation, but not able to make anything of it. Dampening just kicking in, and as time moves on, healing will become increasingly difficult.
Yep, so for Alec in this matchup, he's casting the Greater Pyroblast. Basically, he's looking for these windows of burst damage. In addition, with this Greater Pyroblast, he's soaking a lot of those interrupts, and that allows him later on to push in for polymorphs if he can, but still, Swapsy on the Death Knight and Raikou on the Demon Hunter, they have so many interrupts for Alec that even when he does push in to find those polymorphs, and they've already used some of their interrupts, they still have so many little micro stuns that they can use to really slow down Alec, and that's why it's difficult for him to push in a matchup like this.
I really like Swapsy's Azerite choice nice Azerite trait choice here as he's trying to maximize on damage on multiple targets with those orange chains that appear. It will connect a lot of damage to anyone that stands in between them. It synergizes quite effectively with the Demon Hunter. Really good choice by Swapsy overall. We see Asgrath lockdown and crowd control. This is the opportunity that Method Black set up a little bit earlier on, but Alec read the situation, already has Temporal Shield rolling, and immediately bounces back to full health, denying that opening. And when you pair two teams of this caliber head to head, it is almost certainly guaranteed that the match is going to be going on for an extended period of time, as neither side is likely to make any mistakes whatsoever. Tempo Storm try and go for a big punch here on Chaz, but Swapsy's going to back him up, allowing him to just barely hang on.
Yeah, Chaz getting lower. The Maldic might be able to secure the kill. Darkness gets traded out by Raikou to keep him alive. At 10% dampening, things start getting a little bit scary for these Resto Druids. Chaz once again, Maldic connects. Does he have the Dispel? Manages to get it off with the Iron Bark, but he's still low. If Alex can find any damage in this situation, if Chaz gets interrupted, this could be lights out for Method Black. Now trying to find some offense. Blink CS coming in from Alec onto Chaz, but he manages to stabilize with the Frenzied Regeneration. Now Swapsy, Raikou, they're looking for some pressure onto Asgaroth as he is forced to retreat from that Abomination.
Chaz needs to try and hold his Glider's Medallion on this blind. If he gives it up, he's given up basically all defense for his team, and he's read that situation, knew there wasn't enough damage, and gets away with it, which will keep his team in the fight moving forward. He has still a significant mana advantage over Asgaroth. Amazing Imprison there on Alec. It denies the healing of Temporal Shield. It is effectively like a Cyclone with the Honor talent to improve it, so great awareness by Raikou, denying some healing, and now Asgaroth will have to try and fight through that himself, costing him even more mana and a lot less time. Nixie at a race to a finish is trying to solo Chaz behind the boxes. Asgaroth and Alec move in to back him up, but Chaz immediately repositions, and Alec is just having such a hard time connecting to anything at this point.
Yeah, that's the problem. You have Chains of Ice on you, you use your blinks, you get Death Gripped away, and that really makes it difficult for the Fire Mage to push in. Dragon's Breath looking for a sheep onto Chaz, manages to find it. Raikou there, he doesn't have the reverse magic, actually used it offensively onto Swapsy as Chaz was caught into some crowd control to keep Swapsy in the fight, keep him aggressive, but now Raikou doesn't have that as a defensive, and if Tempo Storm can take advantage of these little opportunities that come their way, little overlaps from Method Black, they can definitely close out the game.
Top tier Restoration Druids, Chaz and Asgaroth here. You can see with the recent changes to Restoration Druids, you put them in the hands of players of this caliber, BlizzCon champions. It's really quite difficult to push any side over here as we move deep into dampening, but at some point, there will be a kill because simply healing just won't do anything, and at that point, things will start to get a lot more chaotic and the trades will become a lot less predictable, and at that point, the opportunity needs to be seized, and Tempo Storm have to win this game if they want to get the swing match. They look like they're trying to do it here as they gun down Chaz. He was crossing the map, he got caught in midfield and clotheslined, huge damage, dispels off that Maledict with the Anti-Magic Zone Shield's defense, will survive, good awareness, and Chaz stays in the fight. Now Asgaroth has to do the same and survive. He positions down below, out in the open, so that Alec can free cast, and Method Black know that, and they don't keep chasing him, but still, if Asgaroth can bait Method Black to chase him into the open, and these Greater Pyroblasts let loose, it could be devastating for Method Black, and Alex getting a lot of no. Raikou denies it right at the last second.
Yeah, nicely done by Raikou. Alec, if he can get one Greater Pyroblast, that's scary. Two is absolutely horrifying, especially at this time in dampening. Alec looking for the polymorphs, and unfortunately not able to push in onto Chaz, just really playing defensive right now as Asgaroth once again sits down for a drink. Chaz in stealth as well. He's pushing in. He wants to find the crowd control on Asgaroth. As soon as he gets out of that drink, pushes in. Chaz doesn't have the bash, it doesn't look like, so it doesn't find the CC onto Asgaroth. Just repositioning on top of him. Alec, nice imprisonment. Nice, again, coming in from Raikou, slowing down those heals onto Alec. Denies the Temporal Shield. Alec in a lot of trouble right now. Iron Bark does fade. If Raikou and Swapsy can stay on target, Asgaroth has to do something to keep them alive, but the double crowd control with the polymorph on Swapsy and the Cyclone on Raikou denies the offense of Method Black.
Crowd control initiated by Tempo Storm, and Chaz trades Iron Bark preemptively for Nixie's assault here, and really Tempo Storm, their only opportunity is if Nixie can catch Chaz off guard and Alec is somehow able to blink in line of sight just in time to finish him off. Other than that, it seems unlikely. They're trying to go after the more safe target being the Death Knight, but with Death Strike and all this great defensive play by Swapsy, I feel like it's very unlikely that he ends up going down as you see him retreating away from Alec and not overextending. Method Black want to play on these boxes. They want to play in close quarters and stacked up, then definitely not going to want to look to overextend. Tempo Storm cannot manage to bait them in the open, and because of that, Method Black are slowly establishing a significant lead on mana, as well as cooldowns, as well as pressure over time. Will they be able to close it out here? Dampening now at 34%, and Raikou is getting a bit impatient, trying to go after Azeroth, and he's overextended. Alec is looking for greater Pyro Blast, but he's also taking a brunt in this exchange of damage. Manages to get a nice double Frost Nova, escape to safety while Azeroth was crowd controlled, but the Maledicts are flying forward. That's going to absorb a lot of healing on Alec, and that could be potential to force Cauterize. Will they have enough? Alec blinks away. Defensive Ring of Frost, but gets Fell Erupted on the cast. Azeroth manages to just push through. No, Cauterize was triggered, so that defense is lost, and potentially Ice Block as well. Alec wants to get aggressive while Chaz is locked down in crowd control, but he just can't. He's too much pressure going straight at him. Ice Block forced, and Method Black are looking like they're going to close this game and move it to game 4 and match point.
Raikou just uses Metamorphosis as well. He has that available for quite some time. Going to be able to do a ton of burst damage to Tempo Storm. Azeroth really falling behind. This pressure from Method Black is huge, especially at 40% dampening. Azeroth looking for the regrowth, trying to keep Alec alive. Temporal Shield does get used. Greater Pyroblast coming in, but he gets stunned by Swapsy. And these are the micro stuns that I'm talking about that make it so difficult for Alex to get these casts off. And now retreating once again, using the combustion, just trying to get some damage rolling for his team. AMZ does deny. Alec getting chased down. He gets gripped back into the fight by Swapsy. Dragon's Breath defensively. Alec trying to run away, but the damage is just too much from Method Black.
Now, let's break down what we did actually see in this game. And, Zico, I want you to answer this like you're talking to, I don't know, maybe the lowest rated person on the desk, maybe somebody who has it. Do we expect games to look like this? We're obviously getting very deep into dampening right now. Do we expect right now, this weekend, with what we're seeing in the current season of BFA, these deep dampening games?
Yes, is the short answer. There's a lot of reasons for why, but like you guys kind of already alluded to, Resto Druids being incredibly strong right now is, of course, a key factor in what prolongs these games. If you play Resto Druid at this level, you are going to be able to keep the game going because they're so mana effective as a healer. They're very tanky if they predict that they're going to get swapped to with that bear form. And of course, they have a lot of crowd control, a lot of reset potential. So Resto Druid is all around very, very strong right now. And then, of course, the Gladiator Safeguard Trinket as well is very, very strong because if you get caught off guard, then you still have that extra defensive kind of to rely on. So it's just a really good meta for Resto Druids right now. I think this map almost backfired on Method Black. We saw Chaz drop down to sub 10% a couple of times, but ultimately he did a really good job here, surviving and just outlasting. And another good thing about this map that we didn't really touch on is the fact that it's a very good map to kind of train down a mage on. And Fire Mage is not that mobile. You don't have any slows, really, other than the 20% Flame Strike slow. So it's going to be very easy for Swapsy to actually reach Alec and take him down when dampening is deep enough.
Yeah, we did talk about the potential risk of that map, but one of the other things that we mentioned is this did have the potential to be that swing matchup. Now that we didn't see it necessarily swing in the opposite direction, do we expect this to come down to a mirror? If we don't get the mirror, maybe we see this matchup again, but there's potential to see the mirror win.
Yeah, I guess for Method Black, they're just going to lock in the Fire Mage. I was going to say, into the cleave setup, I think an Arcane Mage might be okay, but maybe on the smaller maps, it's not necessarily the best option for them because Alex could put out a lot more pressure as an Arcane Mage in that matchup, but now I guess it doesn't really matter going into this final game as it's likely Method Black. They're just going to be locking in that Rogue Mage Druid.
Zico, I didn't see your eyes light up the same way that they used to when Ven would mention Arcane Mage. Back in the day, Ven would mention Arcane Mage and Zico would be like in the desk like, hey, my turn. So what do you think about an Arcane Mage possibly being employed?
Arcane Mages, they're not what they used to be. Let's just say it like that. They, of course, have incredible mobility still, and he would take very little damage, but at the same time, I think what would happen is that Swapsy and Raikou, they would just ignore Alec if he was on that Arcane Mage, and he wouldn't be able to put out that much pressure by himself, so I don't think it would be super beneficial. At the same time, though, he did go down as that Fire Mage, so it could have a place. I really don't think so, though.
It's just not exactly what we used to expect, right? You could do as an Arcane Mage, you just run around and destroy the entirety of the world. Subatees, what do you expect to see now that we do know the map is going to be Ashmane's Fall? It doesn't broadcast too much. Pretty balanced map, but what do you expect?
Well, Tempo Storm basically They have to win the Mirror, or they have to win as Rogue Mage into the Unholy Death Knight, or they have to win as Ellie Mage into Rogue Mage. So they're weighing, I think they have to weigh what is their best option. They're throwing Ashamane's Fall, which would be a good Elemental Shaman map, and maybe thinking about it depending on what Method Black put in, because they don't have to put in the Mirror, and then this map could still be good if they want to switch to an Ellie Shaman and bring Jamie in. But I think Method Black will go for the Rogue Mage Mirror. It wasn't entirely one-sided, to say the least. I think they got Alex Ice Block first, but he was able to extend it long enough to get to the second opportunity for it. So Method Black, obviously, with Swapsy, they want to think about every option. They're definitely one of the teams that likes running that clock all the way down to the last second before they make the choice. They want to think everything through before they do it. Maybe they think the Rogue Mage won't be as effective on Ashamane's. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm more curious to see what Tempo Storm has planned here, if they're going to go for a Mirror again or substitute Jamie.
Well, you jump into your mental time machine, you go back to game number 2, and I ask Zico, is this a strategy thing? Is this a play style thing where we see maybe Method Black not being as strong in the Mirror? And Zico was straight up no. It does come down to some of those small mistakes that we saw. So they could bring the Mirror, maybe clean up those mistakes, maybe grab a win here and not even need to use the advantage that they do have going into game number 5, having that compositional advantage, having that hidden information. But what are they scared of getting countered if they do lock in what we have seen them win on, which is going to be this cleave? What do you think they are scared of Tempo Storm bringing to break down that cleave?
Well, they're afraid of them bringing in Jamie, basically, and I think that's exactly what Tempo Storm is going to do. Method Black bringing in that cleave setup once again, and now Tempo Storm, they can bring in Jamie on the Elemental Shaman. Alec, he can go over to the Frost Mage if he wants. Then you have a Frost Mage and an Elemental Shaman and a Resto Druid. It's a very durable composition, and you can just, with the Lightning Lasso, with the Frost Mage Burst, you can find these opportunities throughout the game with Kleptomania to burst people down, and you can survive a very long time. So I think that is what Tempo Storm is going to go for, and I'm actually really curious why Method Black, I mean, they must have known that. Maybe they're still confident in that matchup with this cleave setup, but I don't think it's a winning matchup for Method Black.
Maybe not confident in the Mirror. I do want to say it's impossible to pick a best group ever. It's impossible to say, okay, this is the best composition. This is the best arrangement of classes to be bringing, of specs to be bringing. But if you had to pick one right now, wouldn't it maybe be Ellie Mage?
For Tempo Storm?
I'm saying period. Like, if you had to pick, because a lot of the time people say, okay, what is the best thing? Whether it's just the best, it's an impossible question to really answer.
Overall,
right? Yeah, it's always impossible because there are too many factors in the game to ever say this is the best, because there's always something that's going to beat it. But if you did have to pick what one of the strongest compositions is right now, Tempo Storm has one of them, and they're just sitting on top of it. Now they can potentially bring it in.
Yeah, I would like to see Tempo Storm bring in the Frost Mage Elemental Resto Druid. Like Van Ruki already mentioned, I do think that the map pick, it can backfire as well, because the cleave, they have been playing for the long game. So what's going to stop Method Black from just staying back at the pillar, trying to death grip some people in, and try to snowball some pressure that way, if Tempo Storm were to lock that in?
Okay, so maybe use that map to your advantage, even though it isn't your pick. Supatis, we heard from everyone what they expect to see. If there was a potential curveball, what do you think it would be?
The only thing that makes sense is Jamie as Elemental. This is the composition they played with an Arcane Mage, but still very similar composition they played at BlizzCon a few years ago when they won, and it's quite effective at dismantling double melee setups. And I was actually thinking, like, didn't they play that to beat the cleaves? Like, why isn't he playing Windwalker? Maybe he doesn't have it prepared or something. There it is. So Nixie Windwalker won BlizzCon with it, and I think it's a smart decision to at least try. But it's match point, and if they lose, they don't get to earn any more points.
Well, the players have had a long break in between last year and this year, and so did we on the desk. We look kind of foolish right now. We predicted something 100% sure, and now leave it to Tempo Storm. I feel like if there's ever the one team that just completely turns things around, it is Tempo Storm. Always having those interesting picks, and always having them at interesting times too. You look here and you say, by the books, this is your opportunity to at least ensure a game number 5. Here, they're going to break out something that we didn't necessarily expect. Supatis likes it. Ven, how do you feel about the comp that they do ultimately break out?
I think it's a solid composition. The Windwalker Monk, very difficult to take down. With Turbo Fist, the honor talent, every time you have Fist of Fury up, you have 100% parry. You cannot be attacked by melee, and you give a 90% slow. So if Swapsy and Raikou, they get caught in that Turbo Fist, they're going to take all kinds of cleave damage as well as be snared, and there's not going to be too much of a threat onto Nixie during that time. The Windwalker Monk, if he ever is in trouble, he can just run away. He also provides Ring of Peace, the disable route, for his mage to keep him alive, in Incapacitate as a crowd control, giving Alec an opportunity to get some burst out. So it is a very solid composition. We'll have to see if they can execute on it, because late game, I still feel like there is a chance that Raikou and Swapsy can take down this Frost Mage.
Turbo Fists, definitely important to think about, but we also need to think about the fact that Method Black locked in the comp that they brought. What do you think they were expecting? Do you think that they were thinking that this comp was something that they would see from Tempo Storm? Because we keep talking about, okay, Jamie's going to be coming in, Jamie's going to be coming in. Why do you think Method felt comfortable bringing this?
I think that it just comes down to, well, we could play the mirror and then it would be risky, because the Demon Hunter Death Knight that they played just earlier, it wasn't by any means like a super counter, just no chance for Tempo Storm to win. Jazz was low multiple times. It was a risky game, and they had to play, to 40-50% dampening to actually close it out. I think they want to avoid that scenario completely by just saying, okay, Tempo Storm, we're going to just lock it in. What do you got? And I think Tempo Storm has a good answer here as well with the Windwalker Mage. I'm just concerned how practiced is Nixie on that Windwalker now. We saw him in the past and he did good with it, but has he been keeping it up? Has he been keeping it polished for BFA? Have they been practicing this composition a lot? And well, there's a lot of questions now that Tempo Storm has to answer.
And that's kind of this tournament in general, too. I think you look at Method, though, a step further, and you really do start to see how they are thinking, right? They have this composition. They've been winning on it. They break it out now. Yeah, they may get counterplayed, but ultimately, what's that mean? Game 5, where they're most likely going to play that composition again. They have an extra game of making sure that they're loose, ready to use that composition. So Method Black definitely still thinking the same way that we've seen them think in the past. We've seen them sometimes been able to ride one comp all the way to a victory. Sometimes they literally change their comp every single game in a series. They're a team that doesn't go by one route. They are very good at on-the-fly adapting, but Tempo Storm, if they are going to be here and ready with the classes that they have, do you think that this is a comp that brings them to Game 5?
I think it absolutely could, and I actually don't think this composition is that bad into Rogue Mage either, especially if Method Black, they do lock in the Rogue Mage Druid. I think Windwalker Mage Druid can compete with that composition, so it won't be a bad blind lock-in for them either, especially if they find success against this composition here in game number 4.
So maybe all of a sudden we see this work for Tempo Storm, and that's their opening. You see Method Black's route to potentially winning, but now Super Tees, you can say with Tempo Storm, if they are able to take this one down, maybe they say, okay, we blind it going into game number 5, maybe on Ruins of Lordaeron. It seems like maybe where we're headed.
I think if Method Black changes specializations on their Rogue Mage, that they could still kind of make it a bit easier. I think if Waz goes Outlaw or Subtlety, then the Windwalker becomes a lot easier to take down than with the Assassination. So Method Black might change up their specializations in their Rogue Mage, should that be the case in Game 5. But we still have to get to that point, and Swapsy and Raikou can still do a lot of damage on the Death Knight and the Demon Hunter, so by no means is this going to be a cakewalk for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, right? You're playing against Method Black. We talk about what they were able to do last year. They did basically everything besides win the final of the year. They were one of the most impressive teams, and then you competed for a long time. You've casted for a long time. How often do you see a team start out that hot and also keep that clip throughout the entirety of a season?
It's really rare, to be honest with you. Normally teams, when they don't find the most success, they disband, they try to find something else, but Method Black didn't really have to go through that. I mean, they're just such a solid team. It seemed like everything just worked for them. Their synergy was really good. They had the right compositions. They had the right work ethic. They just know what they need to do in tournaments. Making it to BlizzCon so far, having such an awesome season, I feel like it was really easy. It was a no-brainer for them to stick together, because it just seems like any meta is their meta with the comps and the players that they have.
And also think about how they formed, right? At the beginning of last year, we see these guys, they had played for such a long time with Minpoike, with Zuniaki. They make that tough decision. We see everything that Minpoike is able to do, and also Zuniaki now has kind of been, I feel like Zuniaki's one of the best players still who's trying to find a team.
Well, that's one of the things about Method Black is their old rosters, when they had those other players, it didn't feel like any meta was their meta. They were kind of locked into very specific compositions, and when those compositions weren't good, their team didn't look nearly as good. But now with Swapsy, with the diversity they have, with Waz multiclassing, Raikou multiclassing, Swapsy multiclassing, Chaz multiclassing, all of them multiclass, many different classes, it just seems like anything that's good, they can play at a high level and they can make it work.
So I do want to look ahead for a quick second here. Minpoike, he's now going to be on, obviously, he would have been playing against them if Tempo Storm kind of kept stuff the same
If they
a
didn't
while
keep him.
back. Before, yeah, it was like a while back, right? That's before we even got into this season. Now he's on Team. That's an easy one to remember. But Zuniaki, he has a team of his very own that is going to be in the tournament. So we look at the remnants of this old team. They're always making it into these top 8s. And the question is, did either of these guys, Minpoike or Zuniaki, find their perfect fit finally? Will they be able to go on these deep and impressive runs throughout the year? But our eyes now back onto Method Black versus Tempo Storm. Method Black can eliminate Tempo Storm with this game.
I think the most interesting part about this tournament as a whole is that we are taking players decades old and pitting them head-to-head against some of the most recent competitors, and all of them are still playing at the top of their game even throughout all of this time and all of this history. And this year is looking to be like one of the biggest years for Arena esports in general, with how many competitors have lined up this year. Everyone's a great team. We see triple crowd control though by Method Black early on as they lead the charge.
Yep, you can see Alec, he's actually playing the Gnome race, so he's going to be able to use that Escape Artist talent in order to get away from Raikou and Swapsy just a little bit better, and that will be the game plan from Tempo Storm. We saw when Nixie was on the Rogue, he tried to put a lot of pressure onto Chaz. That is not going to be their strategy in this matchup. Nixie, he's going to be sitting on Swapsy, sitting on Raikou, putting out as much cleave pressure as possible in this matchup, just keeping Alec alive, who's just going to be kiting away, putting down the Blizzard, putting down the Frozen Orb when he finds those burst moments, and it is going to be a long game.
All right, Method Black, they seem to be target acquired. Run at Asgaroth, pressure whoever's on the way there, Terminator style at the healer, but Asgaroth and Alec are kiting laps around the arena, similar to how we saw Flynn doing in his series earlier today. Asgaroth looking to deny Chaz's drink. Chaz actually using a lot of mana early on? I don't think so. It was almost a bit of a bait to get Urzel's Vortex out of the way. Swapsy, though, getting set up on, and this is what is devastating. That leg sweep, Frozen Orb combined together does a ton of damage, but Chaz immediately knows how to respond, trading Iron Bark and recovering immediately.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what talents Alec is running in this matchup. I think he's playing the instant Blizzard talent after his Frozen Orb, so he can keep up those snares on this target, and that would really indicate that they are going for that long game strategy. Alec still kiting away using the Ray of Frost over onto Swapsy, getting a little bit of burst damage out. Asgaroth gets gripped in, nicely done by Method Black, finding some pressure here, but Asgaroth should be able to shrug it off with that Bark Skin.
All right, Alec's offense there not getting too much done here in the earlier stages of this match, and Swapsy having a difficult time staying on target with Nixie on his back. That is the advantage. Nixie trying to dodge an incoming double stun, but secures one of his own with a counter spell. Great crowd control by Tempo Storm here at this particular moment as they start to build even more momentum. Swapsy, though, just trading out Death Strikes and able to recover through it, despite Nixie using that Turbo Fist to try and parry incoming Death Strikes, and potentially could squeeze that in at a clutch moment to get a kill, denying Swapsy's defense on that heal. We have to keep our eyes open to see if that does happen to be the case moving forward.
Yep, Alec manages to get away with that Gnome Racial once again. So he drops the Kona Cold, uses the Gnome Racial, and that gives him just a small opportunity to get away from Swapsy. I think in the late game, the amount of damage he's going to be able to avoid could end up winning them the game. So I think it was a really smart choice there by Tempo Storm in their Racials. Asgaroth getting swapped to once again, and that's what Swapsy and Raikou want to be looking to do, because a Frost Mage with full Resto Druid Hots is going to be very difficult to take down. So making these swaps onto Nixie, onto Asgaroth, sort of switching it up and keeping Tempo Storm guessing is going to be ultra important for their offense.
Yeah, switching targets frequently against the Restoration Druid is an effective strategy, as Life Bloom is not easy to apply. You need to cast it 3 times with an Honor Talent to stack it, which costs a lot of mana. So if you switch off the target with Life Bloom to one that doesn't, the Restoration Druid has to spend a lot of time and mana to get that heal over time effect ramped up on a different target. So I would like to see more swaps by both sides. A little bit less damage on Swapsy, maybe go after Raikou a tad bit, as this is likely to be an extended match into deep dampening, and switching targets can be a good way to run a Restoration Druid out of mana.
Yep, there's no question about that. Asgaroth doing a little bit worse on mana. It is because of these swaps that we see Method Black doing, like you sort of alluded to, Sid. Barkskin gets used by Asgaroth. He's going to be able to leap away onto Alec, and now it's going to be difficult for Raikou and Swapsy to really chase him down. So as long as Alec is positioned nicely, Asgaroth can use him as sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card in order to escape. But Method Black, I gotta say, they really haven't been under any pressure in this game, and that's really where dampening comes into effect. They need the reduction in healing in order to sort of push through some of the defensives and all that healing that Method Black has available.
Really seems in this matchup in particular, the moments to look for are that Maledict trinket when that Shadow Ball crashes into a target, dealing tons of damage and absorbing incoming. There's a Shadow Ball onto Swapsy as they are trying to set up some momentum towards him, but with no crowd control, Chaz easily deals with it, and now Nixie still trying to keep something going here with that double leg sweep, but with no Frozen Orb comboed together, basically getting no damage done. Alec going in for an aggressive play with that counter spell, but Chaz with a nice response, bashing Alec and getting his Gladiator's Medallion. Could open a kill or a nice block for us potentially later on. Alec really getting aggressive. Unfortunate that that Polymorph ended up getting reverse magicked by Raikou. They still managed to keep it going. Alec trying to set up some burst damage here onto Swapsy. Maybe some Turbo Fists to parry an incoming Death Strike. No, Nixie instead just switching for a second to Chaz. Trying to maybe just poke some attention at Chaz and keep him off guard, but really not committing too much.
Yep, Raikou is going to get polymorphed up there by Alec, and it doesn't look like anyone is really taking too much damage, but dampening has now kicked in, so the rest of Druids are going to have to be very good with their mana, and we'll have to see these swaps and target swaps in this matchup in order to see these teams start generating some pressure. Leg sweep now over onto Swapsy. Full polymorph onto Chaz. Nicely done there by Alec. Raikou doesn't have the reverse magic available just yet, so this might be an opportunity for Tempo Storm to find some damage. Swapsy manages to deflect and avoid some of that damage with the Ice-bound Fortitude, as well as the imprisonment onto Nixie. Now Method Black, they're looking to put some pressure over onto Asgroth as he kites across the map. Alec free casting polymorphs as well as Frostbolts will keep Asgroth alive.
Nixie, or Asgroth jumping into the fight, securing a Cyclone. Raikou locked in polymorphs, but basically no damage for Swapsy. Maledict activated by Asgroth to try and pull some cooldowns here from Swapsy. Frozen Orb is out, but they get gripped into a triple Chaos Nova. Great coordination by Method Black as their assault begins. Devastation, all three members down to about 50% health. Defensive cooldowns forced from each, but they are starting to fall behind, and Method Black are simply switching targets more frequently, creating pressure at more points than Tempo Storm, getting a mana advantage and creating a lot more momentum, and deep and dampening, these moments are going to be much difficult to recover through. Asgroth crossing the map, Nixie sets them up. Good crowd control by Tempo Storm here in desperation, but even still, just not any damage. Swapsy is just a tank on the battlefield.
Yeah, and he chases down Alec. Alec looking for some damage, drops to Blizzard, but gets kited out of it. Frozen Orb gets dropped there by Alec onto Swapsy and Raikou, but Swapsy's able to easily get out of it as well as Raikou. The Blizzard gets dropped down. Alec is playing that instant Blizzard talent, so anytime he uses the Frozen Orb, he can drop an instant Blizzard. And Blizzard, every time it does damage to someone, it resets the Frozen Orb, so those talents are very synergistic and allows Alec, the Frost Mage, to get out multiple points of damage onto Raikou and Swapsy.
All right, another Death Grip, triple Chaos Nova. That's what I'm looking for. They are kiting that Abomination. The Frost Mage, a good pick into the Unholy Death Knight as it can snare up all the pets. But there's the grip. There's the double stun as Alec manages to blink to safety. And spreading out like that allowed him to just avoid a huge amount of damage, basically taking none in that exchange as dampening begins to mount higher and higher. And at deep dampening stages, it becomes increasingly difficult to rotate your defensives. Raikou with great play there, reverse magics Chaz out of crowd control and allows his team to stay aggressive and on target, mounting their assault towards Alec. It would be at this point in dampening that they need to start getting ice blocks or more switch attempts onto Asgroth. It looks to be the case, but Asgroth can immediately jump to safety with Wild Charge. And Swapsy's not able to stay on target. Going for a Maledict play and switching his attention to Alec. Temporal Shield activates immediately on that assault and soaks up all of this damage, healing it back, but not by too much, with dampening starting to ramp up. And at this point, we may be setting a record for dampening, just looking at the pace of the game, and I'm curious to see if we actually do see a record set. I believe it was 81% last year.
I feel like the record is very high. If we saw that, that would be amazing, especially with the introduction of the Maledict trinkets. So we'll have to see how that goes. Triple Chaos Nova going to be used once again by Raikou and Swapsy. Good synergy, good burst pressure out onto Asgroth. He manages to escape away from Swapsy, but Raikou chases him down. Asgroth now looking for crowd control. Full bash into Hibernate onto Chaz, but Chaz shifts out into a Polymorph. So that was very nicely done by Tempo Storm. Beautiful crowd control coming in, but Swapsy just really not taking any damage.
At this point, with heal over time effects and Death Strike, unlikely to go down until deep stages of dampening at this point. Maybe Nixie could potentially run Grapple Weapon. I'm not sure. He probably loses too much offense or defense to go for that kind of kill, but taking a Death Knight's weapon away allows you to deny the ability Death Strike, which heals the Death Knight. So if you can remove the weapon or parry the attacks or immune the attacks, you can prevent that healing, and you can kind of almost burst down the Death Knight in that moment, but you lose some going for that grapple weapon. It doesn't appear to be the case that Nixie is running it, so it's unlikely, which is why I would have liked to see more switching onto Raikou. He doesn't have a Gliders Medallion, so he can't activate his defensive cooldowns, and they're getting double leg sweeps. All they have to do is switch their attention. In the meantime, Method Black have set up, again, a triple stun, putting Alec on the back foot, but reverse magic immediately gets Chaz out of crowd control. There's double leg sweep, and they could easily just switch targets instead of going after Swapsy, at least before dampening. Maybe in deep dampening, the Death Knight is the priority train target, but I feel like they've tunneled Swapsy far too much in this game, and it's just making it easy for Chaz to heal.
Yeah, at some point during that exchange, Azgroth managed to sit down for a full drink, resetting his mana, and that is a good spot to be at 30% dampening. Chaz might be falling behind here, especially if Alec can get the burst damage out, but in the meantime, Alec forcing the ice block. Raikou pulling out the Metamorphosis, going for big damage. Nixie still taking some damage as well, has a Touch of Karma available if he needs it. But Azgroth having to play catch up on both DPS. He has the Iron Bark to fall back onto, as well as a full mana bar, so not the worst situation for Temple Storm, but it seems like Method Black, they're the ones finding most of the offense in this game.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, unless Temple Storm want to go deep into dampening, but at that point, if they've got no ice blocks, Alec is just an easy target, and he already used one, and maybe another with that Maledict connecting by Raikou. Swapsy's connecting. This is a lot of damage. Dampening's ramped up quite high, and second ice block has been forced. They switch their attention to Nixie. Method Black all over Tempo Storm at this point, and it's not looking good for them. The only advantage they have is mana, but if they can't heal because of dampening being so high, I don't care how much mana you have. Alex still under pressure, manages to get to safety, desperately spamming up Polymorph to try and peel the damage away with Hibernate time together. Azgroth and Alec's teamwork is great, but Reverse Magic denies it. Now the crowd control has been broken up. Chaz is free, and his team is mounting an assault.
Yep, Alex getting relentlessly trained down in this matchup, and as a Frost Mage, if you're being trained down by a Death Knight, by a Demon Hunter, your damage output is very limited, but at this point in dampening, you might not need the damage. Swapsy getting lower and lower as he looks to just try to stay on target. Incapacitate over onto Chaz. Nixie looking for the crowd control he needs. Double stun coming in from Swapsy and Chaz. They can't be grouping up like that. That's a big mistake from them this point in the game. Nixie finds the double. Cyclone follows it up, but Alec not there to find any damage over onto Swapsy. Swapsy doesn't have the AMS for another 13 seconds, but Iron Bark connects, and that should be enough to keep Swapsy alive and potentially stabilize. Nixie putting out huge pressure, though. It's Windwalker Monk doing a good job in the matchup.
The slow and methodical play by Tempo Storm has managed to at least create some openings for themselves moving forward, but they're playing against the wall with no ice blocks. Alec is going to be dancing with danger here moving forward. Raikou denies Temporal Shield. Even if it's just a small amount of healing, it's still an amount of healing. We see the Maledicts activate as Swapsy gets counter-pressured away as both teams go aggressive at the same time. Who is going to come out ahead after this chaotic ball of destruction? It looks to be Method Black. It's match point. Tempo Storm could be going home. The damage is just too much to handle. Azgroth gets interrupted. Alec manages to hang on, blinks back to the pillar, kiting for his tournament life at this point as they are match point. Now trying to reverse the pressure, dropping that double leg sweep, but Swapsy denies the kill with the anti-magic zone. He can't leave the safety of that shield. He's trying to get aggressive and still have the defense at the same time, but he's going in and out and taking a huge amount of damage in the exchange. Can Tempo Storm somehow do it with their backs against the wall? Dampening mounted up at 45% healing reduction. There's no defense for Swapsy. There's basically no defense for Alec. Temporal Shield gets activated. Chaz is even moving in to try and secure some crowd control, but gets denied due to Alec's great positioning and kiting as both teams fight it out to the bitter end.
Touch of Death coming in from Nixie. Swapsy could be in some trouble. Raikou trying to keep the pressure up on Alec, but Swapsy, he cannot afford to be in midfield right now. He has to get topped off by Chaz, but at 50% healing reduction, it becomes so difficult. Incapacitate coming in from Nixie once again. Alec in a position to get some damage rolling on a Swapsy, but Swapsy with the AMS, he's looking to get aggressive. Caught into the leg sweep though. Big burst damage coming in from Tempo Storm. Swapsy has to use the AMS, trades it out with the Iron Bark. Overlap from Method Black, but at this point in dampening, you have to overlap to stay alive. Alec now really able to do significant damage in this matchup. Still just stalling out the game, looking for the Novas, looking for the Polymorphs. Swapsy just not getting topped off.
All right, but Alec is still on the back foot. One more second to Iron Bark. Alec gets it, but he was able to get to safety. He may not have needed it. Now they switch to Nixie. Double cooldowns. Azgroth has to Gladiator's Medallion as well. They've got basically one more opportunity to get a kill, but Swapsy's got Icebound Fortitude in 4 more seconds. That opportunity is immediately going to get denied. Azgroth can't keep his team going for much longer to get through it. Swapsy just uses Icebound Fortitude to stay aggressive, aggressive. It's a race to the finish. Who is going to fall first? Is it going to be Swapsy? Is it going to be Alec? Both healers locked down in crowd control. Both healers almost completely tapped on mana as Alec just running for his life, but Maledict connects, gets dispelled instantly, but it's still not enough, and Raiku's going to close this game out 3-1. Nixie still playing it out, trying to deny it, but with Raiku's defense there with Darkness, it's impossible. Method Black, they're back.
And ultimately, you say, hey, look, they're playing it out, even when it looks pretty grim. That is because that was an elimination series. They are going to be sent home. Method Black moves forward, and they're going to be one of the scariest teams that you can have when you're going to be facing elimination every single time that you are going to be playing them. So dropping down to the lower bracket, just a bit scarier. Let's talk about how they were able to do it, because ultimately, we thought they were going to maybe need to take it all the way to Game 5, Zico.
Yeah, well, they had really good defensive strategies. Again, just try to tunnel down Alec as much as possible. Alec's strategy, of course, playing with that freezing rain and that no mage as well for that extra little bit of mobility. His game plan was pretty much to just drag the melees as far away as possible, rotate his orb and spam out as many blizzards as possible, and try to prolong the game as much as possible. But Swapsy, very, very disciplined player, like you guys already mentioned in the cast, doesn't push forward when he knows that he is in danger, always comes back to his healer behind the pillar and just lets Raikou kind of act as the offensive player of the team. Raikou, of course, always has his defensives ready, so he can pretty much just chase Alec as much and as long as possible. Eventually, of course, they will win due to the fact that they just have more damage consistently throughout the game, because that Frost Mage, he's not going to be able to get any Frost Bolts out, so you're going to have a Demon Hunter just going to town, and eventually that's all it takes.
Now, 2 questions pop into your mind, right? We're going to be having that shift in the day. All of a sudden, we jump up to the series with the teams that have not lost a single matchup, and you say, who the heck could beat Method Black, one of the strongest teams? Well, it's going to be the Milkman. I'm going to call him the Milkman. His name's a real mouthful, tricky to say. And the other thing you may say is, wow, Resto Druids look really strong. Why didn't we see even more Resto Druids today, maybe in the first series? It's because most of them have set their roots in the upper portion of the bracket. And when we look at these two teams, they have some pretty formidable trees. You look at Minpoike, obviously somebody that always, when he does get to play on the Druid, that's when he does look at his best. And then you talk about Fnabbers. We haven't seen him in a while. I remember casting him way back in the day. Takes a little bit of the break. Now he's going to be here. And once again, we have 2 very skilled cap players, Fenruki.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think Rogue Mage Druid is going to be the main composition for both of these players, or for both of these teams. So they definitely could see a mirror in these matchups. And like you said, both of these Resto Druids really strong, and we could be looking at some long games once again.
These are particularly interesting rosters for me. I think looking at these are some of the more interesting ones in the day, because you have like a player who maybe sat on the bench for a little while, even though you knew that they were really good. A player who hasn't maybe played for a really long time. A player whose name you really never heard of before. It has just about everything in all of these rosters. So let's talk right now about the Milkmen. Zico, how do we actually say their name?
Chalky Milkman.
Okay, all right, let's talk about everybody who they have. The first player I want to talk about is Gelubaba, a fantastic player that didn't find the perfect team for him last year. He finds success, but he finds most of that success on the bench. We don't expect to see that today.
Yeah, so Gelubaba, of course, was riding the bench for most of last season in the team Reformed. They made it to BlizzCon, but they couldn't really integrate him to the team. They tried to play with Flappers, the feral druid of that team, on his rogue, but they couldn't really find that synergy between Gelu and Flappers. And Gelu had a pretty terrible win rate, if we're being honest, last season, but we always said that it was never really reflective of how skilled he was as a player. Consistently, he played all the mage specs, unlike most mages actually in Legion, and he performed phenomenally on most of them, but he was playing with 2 alts in his team. Now, he's not going to have that issue. He's going to have a main rogue on his roster, a main discipline priest, and of course, Fnabbers, another old veteran, going to be returning into the scene this season.
Yeah, ultimately, for quite some time, considered one of the best druids in the world as well. But I do want to go back to what we did say about Gelu, because this is, everybody makes fun of me because I can't do math super quick or anything without a calculator and stuff, but you look at Gelubaba and the numbers just completely lie. You look at his win rates, it doesn't say anything about how good of a player he is, and if you go back and watch the VODs, you're going to see him stunting on people even when they do lose. He looked fantastic. It's very exciting to actually see what he'll do with a roster that can support his classes. Do you think it's going to be enough for him to actually be able to take the win? You can vote right now for hashtag CMM, that's for the Chalky Milkman, or you can use hashtag TM for team. Nice and simple there. We're going to talk more about what all of these rosters are going to have to offer before we jump into the blind pick on the Grand Arena, because these are two of the more interesting squads. We started out the day with 2 elimination series, and ultimately we saw F2K and Tempo Storm fall. Method Black and Bronze Troll, we'll get to see more of them in the tournament, but now it's time to take a look at some of the teams that haven't dropped the ball yet. Is it going to be the Milkmen, our team, who keep on trucking?